First contact. The soft hum of the hydrolift descended through layers of azure water, carrying Dr. Nolan Reed deeper into the unknown. Through the curved glass of the transport pod, bioluminescent creatures flickered like living constellations against the darkening blue. Nolan pressed his palm against the cool surface, watching a school of translucent, glowing fish dart away from the human intrusion. "First time below the thermocline?" asked a melodic voice through his communication device. Nolan straightened in surprise. He hadn't realized the comm was active. "Is it that obvious?" he replied, attempting to mask his nervousness with professional curiosity. A gentle laugh came through the speaker. "Your fascination gives you away. Most researchers who come to our world have seen the simulations, but nothing quite captures the real experience." The transport pod slowed as it approached the gleaming dome of Nautilus Station, an international research facility built in collaboration with the native Proxians. As the airlock cycled, Nolan gathered his research equipment, his heart racing with anticipation. 6 years of applications and preparations had led to this moment. 3 months studying the unique bioluminescent marine life of Proxima b. The inner door slid open, and Nolan stepped into the station's atrium, momentarily stunned by the panoramic underwater view. Standing before him was a woman unlike any he had seen before. Her skin had a subtle blue undertone that complemented her silver-white hair, which floated gently around her face as if perpetually underwater. Her eyes, large and iridescent, regarded him with unmistakable intelligence. "Welcome to Nautilus Station, Dr. Reed. I'm Talia Zenith, Cultural Liaison and Marine Biology Specialist." She extended her hand in the human gesture she had clearly learned for interactions with Earth scientists. I took her hand, noting the slight webbing between her fingers and the unusual warmth of her skin. "It's an honor to meet you. Your paper on symbiotic relationships in deep trench ecosystems was groundbreaking." A hint of surprise flickered across Talia's features. "You've read my work? I've studied everything published about proxy and marine biology. Your insights on bioluminescent communication between species formed the foundation of my research proposal." Talia's professional demeanor softened slightly. "Then we have much to discuss. Let me show you to your quarters first, then I can give you a tour of the laboratories." As they walked through the curved corridors of the station, Nolan couldn't help but observe Talia's graceful movements. She seemed to flow rather than walk, an evolutionary adaptation to a primarily aquatic existence. "You will find that time moves differently here," Talia explained. "Our days are longer, and the light from our suns filters through the water in ways your eyes might find disorienting at first." "I've trained in altered light environments," Nolan assured her, though he was already noticing how the refracted sunlight created patterns of light and shadow that made ordinary objects seem magical. "Training is one thing, living here is another." There was something in her tone, not quite condescension, but the quiet confidence of someone who had witnessed many humans struggle to adapt. "The ecosystem doesn't conform to human expectations, Dr. Reed. The sooner you accept that, the more successful your research will be." Nolan met her gaze directly. "I didn't come here to impose Earth science on Proxian waters. I came to learn." For the first time, Talia smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her features from merely striking to truly beautiful. "Then you might survive here after all."
Depths of understanding. 3 weeks into his assignment at Nautilus Station, Nolan found himself increasingly fascinated, not just by the extraordinary marine life of Proxima b, but by his enigmatic research partner. Talia moved through the laboratory with practiced efficiency, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as she cataloged their latest specimens. The luminescent patterns of these coral polyps change depending on the tide cycle, she explained, manipulating the 3D model to highlight pulsing nodes of blue-green light. We believe it's a form of communication with symbiotic microorganisms. Nolan leaned closer, his shoulder nearly touching hers. On Earth, we've observed similar behaviors in deep-sea communities, but nothing with this level of complexity. Perhaps you weren't looking closely enough, Talia suggested, a teasing lilt in her voice that had become more common between them in recent days. He smiled, no longer offended by her gentle provocations. Or perhaps Earth's oceans and Proximas are more different than we initially thought. Different, yes, but with fascinating parallels. Talia saved their findings and closed the display. I think we've earned a break. Would you like to see something few off-worlders have witnessed? Curiosity piqued. Nolan nodded. Lead the way. Talia guided him through a series of maintenance corridors to a small airlock at the station's lowest level. We'll need to swim. The pressure suits are there, she pointed to a storage compartment. Where exactly are we going? Nolan asked as he pulled on the sleek wetsuit designed to withstand Proxima B's underwater pressures. Patience, Dr. Reed. Talia's eyes sparkled with mischief. Some discoveries shouldn't be preceded by explanations. They entered the airlock, and as water filled the chamber, Nolan watched in amazement as gill-like structures emerged along Talia's neck, an evolutionary adaptation he'd read about but never witnessed. She caught him staring and smiled, pointing to his oxygen mask in gentle reminder. Once submerged, they swam beneath the station, following a trail of natural rock formations. Talia moved through water with graceful undulations, occasionally glancing back to ensure Nolan kept pace. After several minutes, they approached what appeared to be a solid rock wall until Talia swam directly through a hidden opening. Nolan followed cautiously and emerged into a vast underwater cavern. His breath caught in his throat. The entire space was illuminated by thousands of crystalline formations that seemed to capture and amplify the bioluminescence of tiny organisms growing on their surfaces. The effect was like swimming through a living galaxy. This is the heart chamber, Talia's voice came through her communication device, named for the way the crystals pulse with light, like a heartbeat. It's incredible, Nolan whispered, turning slowly to take in the spectacular view. How did you find this place? I grew up exploring these waters, she replied, swimming closer to him. My mother was one of the first to advocate for scientific exchange with Earth. She believed our worlds could learn from each other. She was right, Nolan said, as watching how the blue light played across Talia's features. Though I'm starting to realize how little we truly understand about your world. Understanding begins with openness. Talia gestured toward a natural stone shelf where they could sit partially submerged. Tell me about your world, Nolan. Not the scientific facts. I've studied those. Tell me what you miss about Earth. The request surprised him. They'd spent weeks discussing science, but personal conversations had been rare. I miss thunderstorms, he admitted after a moment. The way the air changes before rain, how lightning illuminates everything for a split second. Talia listened intently as Nolan described Earth's seasons, mountain hikes, and his family's small coastal home. In return, she shared stories of Proxian festivals that celebrated the alignment of their twin moons and childhood memories of swimming with migratory luminous jellyfish. We're not so different, she said softly, as they floated in the gentle current, surrounded by pulsing light. Different worlds, different biologies, but similar souls. Nolan looked at her, really looked at her, seeing not just a research colleague or an alien being, but a woman with dreams, memories, and feelings that resonated with his own. I'm beginning to see that, he replied, his voice low. Something shifted between them in that moment, like a current changing direction. As they swam back to the station in companionable silence, Nolan realized that his research on Proxima b had become about far more than marine biology. He was charting emotional territories just as unknown, just as wondrous.
Surface tension. The alarm blared through Nautilus Station, its urgent wail punctuated by flashing red lights. Nolan jolted awake, momentarily disoriented until the automated system announced, "Warning, thermal vent instability detected. All personnel report to Central Hub for emergency protocols." He rushed through the corridor, joining the stream of researchers heading toward the station's core. The atmosphere was tense, controlled, until a violent tremor shook the facility, sending equipment crashing to the floor. The northern research pods are directly above the affected vent network, Dr. Cato, the station director, explained once everyone had assembled. "We need to evacuate those sections immediately. Teams will be redistributed to secure areas." Nolan spotted Talia across the room, her expression taut with worry. She caught his eye and made her way to his side. "The specimens we collected yesterday, they're still in Pod 4. 3 months of research data." "They're evacuating that section," Nolan replied, understanding immediately the significance of what might be lost. Talia's eyes held a question. Without speaking, they both slipped away from the main group, heading toward the northern corridor. "We have 20 minutes before they seal this section," Talia said as they reached Pod 4. "Help me transfer the live specimens to portable containment units." They worked quickly, securing delicate organisms and downloading research data. The station shuddered again, more violently this time, sending the storage unit crashing into Talia. She cried out as it pinned her against the wall. "Talia!" Nolan rushed to her side, struggling to lift the heavy unit. "Are you hurt?" "Just my pride," she winced as he helped her up. "And perhaps a rib or two." Another tremor hit, and the pod's exit door slammed shut, the emergency system activating automatically. A computerized voice announced, "Pod 4 sealed due to structural integrity concerns. Remain in place until rescue team arrives." They were trapped. "The thermal vents must be more unstable than they realized," Talia said, pressing a hand to her side in pain. "We're safe in here for now, but isolated." Nolan helped her to the small medical station and retrieved a scanner. "Let me check your injury." She hesitated, then nodded, allowing him to run the device over her rib cage. His fingers brushed against her skin, causing an involuntary intake of breath that wasn't entirely from pain. 2 bruised ribs, he diagnosed, applying a regenerative patch to the affected area. This should help with the healing and pain. "Thank you," she said softly, her eyes meeting his with unexpected vulnerability. "Not just for this, for understanding about the specimens. Most humans wouldn't have risked safety for research. Most humans haven't worked with someone as passionate about their field as you are," Nolan replied with a smile. "Besides, I couldn't let you come alone." The pod trembled again, lights flickering momentarily. Instinctively, Talia reached for him, her fingers gripping his arm. Neither of them moved to break the contact after the shaking subsided. "If we're going to be trapped for a while, we might as well get comfortable," Nolan suggested, retrieving emergency blankets from a cabinet. They settled on the floor, backs against the wall, shoulders touching. As hours passed with no rescue, their conversation drifted from professional to personal, the crisis dissolving barriers that had remained between them despite their growing friendship. "I was engaged once," Nolan confessed when their discussion turned to relationships. "She couldn't understand why I would leave Earth for so long. Said my priorities were clear. Science over love." "Was she right?" Talia asked quietly. Nolan considered the question. "I thought science was how I understood the universe, but lately, I've wondered if there are other ways of knowing just as valid." In the dim emergency lighting, Talia's eyes seemed to glow with their own inner luminescence. "On Proxima, we believe understanding comes through connection. To our world, to other beings. Science is part of that connection, not separate from it." Another tremor, stronger than before, sent equipment sliding across the floor. Talia gasped in pain as the movement jostled her ribs. Without thinking, Nolan pulled her closer, sheltering her body with his own. When the shaking stopped, neither moved away. Their faces were inches apart, breath mingling in the small space between them. "Nolan?" Talia whispered, her voice unsteady. I feel a connection I didn't expect. His hand moved to her face, fingers tracing the delicate contours of her cheekbone. I've felt it since the heart chamber. Maybe before. Their lips met hesitantly at first, then with growing certainty. It was a kiss of discovery, familiar and alien at all once. Talia's skin was warmer than human temperature, her scent reminiscent of ocean and something sweetly unfamiliar. When they separated, Nolan saw wonder in her eyes that matched his own. This was uncharted territory for both of them, a crossing of boundaries neither had anticipated. "The rescue team will reach us eventually," she said with a smile that held new intimacy, "but suddenly, I'm in no hurry for them to arrive."
Tidal pull. The rescue came 8 hours later, long enough for boundaries to blur, not long enough to fully explore what had awakened between them. In the days that followed their ordeal in Pod 4, Nolan and Talia maintained professional decorum in public while exchanging private glances that carried the weight of unspoken questions. 1 week after the thermal vent incident, Talia appeared at Nolan's quarters after most of the station had powered down for the night cycle. "I've received permission to take one of the research skimmers," she said when he opened the door. "There's a bioluminescent bloom happening in the eastern reefs that only occurs once every 3 years. "Official research expedition?" Nolan asked, noting her casual attire rather than standard field gear. A smile played at the corners of her mouth. "Let's call it independent study." The two-person skimmer glided silently through dark waters, its transparent dome offering an unobstructed view of the ocean around them. Talia piloted with confident hands while Nolan monitored the navigation system, stealing glances at her profile illuminated by dashboard lights. "We never really talked about what happened," he ventured finally, "in Pod 4. "Proxians believe actions speak more truthfully than words," Talia replied, her eyes remaining on the control panel. "But I understand humans need verbal processing. Is that your way of saying you're uncomfortable discussing it?" She turned to him then, her expression softening. "No, it's my way of saying I'm still understanding how to navigate this current between us. It's unexpected." "For me too," Nolan admitted. "There are regulations about relations between Earth researchers and indigenous populations." "Are there?" Talia's eyebrow arched playfully. "How interesting that you've researched this specific topic." Heat rose to his face. "I may have reviewed the guidelines recently." Her laughter filled the small space, genuine and warm. "And what did these guidelines tell you?" "That such relations aren't forbidden, just complicated, especially given the temporary nature of most research assignments." The word temporary hung between them, a reminder that Nolan's time on Proxima B had a definite end date. "We're approaching the reef," Talia said, changing the subject as she reduced the skimmer's speed. "Turn off all lights." Darkness enveloped them completely for a few heartbeats. Then, gradually, a soft glow emerged from the waters ahead, gentle pulses of blue-green light that began to intensify and spread until they were surrounded by undulating waves of luminescence. "It's the mating ritual of the Stella Medusae," Talia explained softly. "The light patterns attract compatible partners." They watched in awed silence as thousands of jellyfish-like creatures performed their ancient dance, creating complex patterns that rippled through the water. The light reflected on Talia's face, making her appear almost ethereal. "It's beautiful," Nolan whispered, not wanting to break the spell of the moment. "My people believe witnessing this bloom together creates a bond, that those who share this sight carry a piece of each other's spirit afterward." Nolan reached for her hand, finding it already extended toward his. "I think I'd like that." The skimmer drifted, forgotten, as they drew closer to each other. This kiss was different from their first, not born from adrenaline and uncertainty, but from choice and growing affection. Nolan's fingers tangled in her silver-white hair as Talia's hands traced the contours of his face with tender curiosity. "Your temperature rises when you're aroused,"
she observed with scientific precision that made him laugh against her lips. "Is that your professional assessment, Dr. Zenith?" "Merely an observation." Her smile was mischievous as she moved to straddle him in the pilot seat. "Though I believe further study is warranted." Their explorations of each other mirrored their scientific pursuits, methodical yet filled with wonder, careful yet increasingly bold. Talia's skin glowed faintly in the darkness, an evolutionary trait that Nolan found endlessly fascinating. His fingertips traced patterns along her arms, her back, learning the subtle differences in texture and warmth. "Your heart beats faster than mine," she murmured, her palm flat against his chest. "It always has. I used to think it was anxiety about being on a new world." "Sometimes it was," he admitted, drawing her closer. "Now it's something else entirely." They moved together with increasing urgency, surrounded by the luminescent ballet of ancient creatures, until pleasure crested like a wave breaking against shore. Afterward, they floated in contented silence, wrapped in each other's arms as the luminescent bloom gradually dimmed around them. Reality intruded gently as the skimmer's communication system chimed with a routine check-in from the station. As Talia responded, confirming their location and status, Nolan contemplated the calendar that had begun to loom in his consciousness. 10 more weeks until his scheduled return to Earth. "What are you thinking?" Talia asked when she finished the transmission. "That time moves differently here, just like you told me when I arrived, but not slowly enough."
In Nolan's quarters, displayed the message he'd been dreading. Transport's confirmation. Earth return vessel docking at Nautilus Station in 72 hours. 3 days left. Just 3 days to decide the direction of his life. He found Talia in the cultivation lab, carefully tending to coral samples they had collected together during their last expedition. For weeks, they had danced around the subject of his departure, filling their nights with passionate encounters and their days with increasingly urgent research, as if scientific discovery could somehow solve the problem of belonging to different worlds. "You received the notification?" she said without looking up, sensing his mood the moment he entered. "Yes." He moved beside her, watching her hands work with practiced precision. "Talia, we need to talk about what happens next." She continued her methodical care of the coral. "I've been appointed lead researcher for the new Deepwater Mapping Initiative. It's a 5-year project." "That's wonderful," he said sincerely. "No one deserves it more." "And you?" She finally looked at him, her iridescent eyes searching his face. "Will you publish our findings and add another impressive credential to your Earth resume?" The hint of bitterness in her voice was unusual for her typically measured tone. "Is that what you think I've been doing here? Collecting research for personal acclaim?" "No," she sighed, setting down her instruments. "I was unfair. I know how much this work means to you." "Not just the work," Nolan said quietly. Around them, the lab hummed with activity as other researchers went about their tasks. This wasn't the place for the conversation they needed to have. "Meet me at the Eastern Observation Deck after final cycle," Talia said, seeming to read his thoughts. "We'll talk then." The hours until their meeting stretched interminably. Nolan spent them sending final research transmissions to Earth, organizing his notes, and staring at application forms for extended research visas that he downloaded weeks ago but never completed. The Eastern Observation Deck was deserted when he arrived. Through the curved glass, Proxima B's twin moons cast rippling silver paths across the dark water. Talia stood silhouetted against this backdrop, her profile turned toward the vastness of the ocean. "My grandmother told me that the pull of the moons affects more than just the tides. She believed they pull on our hearts, too, guiding us toward our true path." "And what path do they show you?" Nolan asked, stopping beside her. "The same one I've always seen. My life is here, in these waters, with my people. But now there's a current pulling against that certainty.
Nolan took her hands in his. "I've been offered a permanent position with the Earth Science Coalition. Senior researcher, my choice of projects." Pain flickered across her features before she masked it with a smile. "Congratulations. You've earned it." "I haven't accepted." Hope and wariness battled in her expression. "Why not?" "Because the most fascinating research, the most important discoveries, and the most extraordinary person I've ever known are all here." He squeezed her hands gently. "I've requested a permanent transfer to Nautilus Station." Talia's eyes widened. "Nolan, your career on Earth is just that, a career. But this," he gestured between them, "is something I never expected to find on any world." The transfer might not be approved, though joy was beginning to replace doubt in her eyes. And even if it is, there would be challenges, cultural differences, biological adaptations you would need. Not everyone will understand or accept. Nolan silenced her concerns with a kiss. "I'm a scientist, remember? I specialize in studying complex systems and finding ways to adapt." She laughed against his lips, her body relaxing into his embrace. "A very thorough scientist, as I recall, who has much more research to conduct," he murmured, drawing her closer. They stood together at the edge of possibility, the twin moons casting their silver light over intertwined figures, one born of Earth, one of Proxima b, but both now belonging to the space they had created between their worlds. 3 days later, the Earth transport vessel departed without Nolan. Instead, he stood with Talia on a natural stone platform overlooking the heart chamber cave they had visited months ago. Around them, a small gathering of Proxians and human colleagues watched as they participated in a Proxian bonding ritual, simplified for cross-species understanding, but profound in its symbolism. They exchanged vials of water, Talia's containing the bioluminescent waters of her homeworld, Nolan's holding a sample of Earth's ocean that he had carried across the stars. As they poured these waters together into the cave pool, the mixed essences created a new pattern of light, neither fully of Earth nor of Proxima b. "Like us," Talia whispered as they watched the luminescence spread. Above them, through the cave's crystal ceiling, the refracted light of Proxima b's twin moons cast dappled patterns across their upturned faces. Different anatomies, different worlds of origin, but as they stood hand in hand, the convergence of their paths seemed as natural and inevitable as the tides themselves. In the years that followed, Dr. Nolan Reed became known across 2 worlds, not only for groundbreaking research on bioluminescent communication systems, but also as a pioneer in cross-species cultural exchange. Alongside Dr. Talia Zenith Reed, he established the first permanent collaborative institute for shared knowledge between Earth and Proxima b. And sometimes, during rare moments away from their work, they would take a small skimmer to witness the bioluminescent bloom, floating among ancient light patterns that had brought them together, 2 beings from different worlds who had found, against all odds, a shared current in the vast cosmic ocean.